Hello everyone, I'm Bo from Brutal Commentary, and today I'm going to be doing my post-fight show of UFC Vegas 110 or Fight Night 263. Overall, I thought the card was alright. I truly felt like this was more of a typical Apex card, if I'm being honest. Some good finishes, some good fights, some kind of duds, and overall left me thinking, okay, that was a good Saturday, I suppose. I kind of give the card a 6 out of 10. At most 7, as I did say, I thought there were some really good fights. The main event was really good. There's some interesting controversy on this card as well, which I'll get into, especially on the main card. And that co-main event could be a discussion all of its own. But overall, I think the card was all right. In terms of picks, I didn't do too bad either. I went 8 and 4 on my predictions. Specifically, I went 5 and 1 on the prelims, and I went 3 and 3 on the main card. So I thought overall pretty good. But without further ado, let's dive into the post-fight show. First up, Talia Alencar submits Ariane Carnelossi via third round rear naked choke. I thought overall Alencar had improved her striking in this fight. Specifically, her shot selection I thought was much better in this fight, as she was able to string combinations much better and some good effective kicks. Now, Carnelossi, for her part, was mostly pressuring Alencar and sometimes used her reach advantage, but I thought Carnelossi should have probably fought on the outside as they started jockeying for position along the fence, in the clinch specifically. And that's where, in the first round, Alencar was able to get a head and arm throw, and then from there, get grappling position and beat Carnelossi in most of the positions. Then in round 2, that's where I thought Alencar really showed some improvement in her striking, as for a second she kind of looked anemic with her offense, but then she finds the opening, throws an overhand right that really hurts Carnelossi, and then as Carnelossi kind of gets back up, Alencar gets the full plum and hits a perfect knee to the head and really hurts Carnelossi with that. And then from there, Alencar is able to get a takedown in, and then control the entirety of the second round, and even get a rear naked choke that would have choked out Carnelossi unconscious, or made her tap if there was 10 to 5 seconds left. She was literally saved by the bell, Carnelossi, literally. And then third round, it kind of looked like Alencar was gassed. It looked like she was tired by the third round, and you could see her striking output was not the same, and her hands were starting to go by her waist. Clearly tired, but still had enough in the tank to take down Carnelossi and then eventually use her grappling dominance to get the back and go for the rear naked choke. So overall, I didn't think it was a bad performance by Carnelossi. I mean, she's now 3 and 1 in the UFC and just got her second submission of her career. Her first one was her debut many years ago against Amanda Ribas, which is kind of crazy to think about. Overall, like I said, I think Carnelossi did a good job, and I thought she could get the submission in this fight. She is a really good jiu-jitsu artist. Granted, I don't think Alencar is going to go far in the strawweight division. I definitely don't see a title run, but, I'm interested to see how far she can go as a 35-year-old prospect. As for who they give her, I think Alice Ardeline makes the most sense. They both won on this card, and I think they're both roughly at the same skill level. So I think that makes the most sense. As for Carnelossi, I think it's time for her to get her pink slip. Honestly, she probably should be, 4-0 in her last, I can't talk today. 1 and 4 in her last 5, as she only won her most recent fight because of Pierre Rodriguez's low IQ at that moment. And, she's now 1 and 3 in her last 4, and 2 of those were by finish. I think Carnelossi's probably done. Moving up on the card, Suk Young Kyo absolutely dominates Phil Rowe in this fight. If you look at the stats, Kyo got 4 takedowns, shot 4 takedowns, got all 4 of them, 13 minutes of control time in a 15-minute fight. That is insane. That basically means, at best, for 15 minutes, Phil Rowe could only, get up or stay on the feet for 2 minutes at most. And then you look at the striking differentials, holy shit. Phil Rowe only landed 10 strikes, 3 of which were significant. Of those 3, I could not possibly tell you, besides maybe one cross that landed. Seok Young Kyo is good, guys. He is so good. His positional grappling dominance is terrifying because he does not make positional mistakes. He knows exactly what his opponents are going to do from the bottom, whether they're trying to shrimp, build height, get their hooks in. It does not matter. Kyo knows exactly what they're going to do. You could clearly see it with his judo and sambo background. Even when Phil Rowe got up in round 1, Kyo still had the tight waist and got a perfect hip toss in and put Phil Rowe right back down. Even though the striking, he was clearly winning, but granted, it wasn't much. It was 4 minutes and 30 seconds of control time in round 1, 4 minutes and 32 seconds in round 2. Now, I didn't really see how much in total for round 3. At that time, when they showed it, it was about 2 minutes, 53 seconds and counting. But, it was a flawless performance. There's nothing Phil Rowe could do in this fight. Absolutely nothing. And while I can't say it's the most exciting performance, at least Kyo was actually throwing elbows and damaging Phil Rowe as best he can to avoid a stand-up. Definitely more than Almeida did. And no, I'm not going to stop throwing shade until, he proves us wrong in not being a blanket. But, like I said, man, Kyo's good. He's really good. He beat Oban Elliott, who I thought is a better wrestler than Phil Rowe. He can do anything. And now Phil Rowe, who, is a good striker, but has clearly shown a deficiency in grappling. He could not do a thing in this fight. Absolutely nothing. It was one-way traffic. The thing about Kyo is he's 31. Do they rush him up the ranks? Because I'm going to tell you right now, if he's fighting 13 to 15 in the welterweight division, Daniel Rodriguez, Ismael Bonfim, and Mike Malott, I think he beats all of them. I really do. I'm very high on him. Just question is, do they give him one more fight to really see if he's all that, or do they rush him up the rankings? I personally think, it's now or never for Kyo, in my opinion. He's 31. That's in his prime. He's in the welterweight division. And, it's not like flyweight where if you're 35, everything goes downhill. But it's not it's not an old man's division either, say light heavyweight. So I think give Kyo Mike Malott, but I don't think they want to do that. I want they give their only Canadian star. So they might give him D-Rod, or they could give him the Neil Magny test too. That's a possibility. And Neil Magny could provide some problems for Kyo, but we've seen Kyo has good 3-round cardio, especially for his style. I think, he's going to dominate Magny on the ground. So, great by Kyo. As for Phil Rowe, you can give him fun fights. You could give him Kevin Holland for sure. That'd be fun. Or even Randy Brown if he loses to Bonfim, or, maybe Wonder Boy. There's some options for Rowe that'll be fun striking matches. Moving up on the card. Elise Ardeline defeats Montserrat Ruiz via unanimous decision, clear 30-27. Honestly, I thought offensively, Ardeline showed some really good striking opportunities. And overall, in terms of the offense, I have absolutely no complaints. I thought Ardeline did a good job switching stances, usually starting her offense with a good jab, and sometimes even faking the jab to find an opening for the rear hand, like her cross. It didn't matter if it was southpaw or orthodox. She would sometimes just throw the cross without setting it up, and it would work. I thought her overall other strikes were doing pretty well. Her knees to the body, her leg kicks. I thought as the fight went on, Ardeline was opening up and showed she's got pretty good cardio and a workman-like rate. She doesn't seem to have much power, but she makes up for it with her volume and overall, just like I said, workman-like rate. The only thing I really had that was a problem, I thought, was Ardeline's defense. Specifically, the only time she would really get hit was when she go in for a combo and they call it painting a picture, is where you throw a really good combo. You take that 1 second to admire that you land that shot. That's usually when fighters can hit you right back. And that seemed to be the only time Ruiz could actually find success with her striking, because every time she tried to lunge in with an overhand, it wouldn't work. Ardeline would kind of just quarter turn, sidestep out of the way. And then, so the only time you could see Ruiz actually land something of significance, it was the take a shot to give a shot mentality. Even her takedowns weren't good. Or sorry, she couldn't get a single takedown in this fight. Arlene was too big for whenever Ruiz would go for a single leg and could literally just hop on one leg and then nail Ruiz with hammer fist as she's hopping on one leg. So that didn't work. Even Ruiz got her down or took her back. Arlene was able to take Ruiz down in the 3rd round, got her back in the 1st round. There's nothing really Ruiz could do in this fight, unfortunately. It's just what it is. She lost to, not only a better fighter, but simply a bigger fighter too. So for Arlene, this is actually pretty good. It keeps her, UFC, keeps her UFC career alive. She's now 2-2 in the promotion. And she just came off a fight of the night against Rihanna Dos Santos. I feel like I said, I think Talia Alencar makes the most sense. I think they're both of roughly the same skill level, and they're both right now in the same position. So I think Arlene should probably fight Talia Alencar. As for Ruiz, that's probably it for her in the UFC. She's now 0-4 in her last 4 fights, and 3 of those were by finish, and years apart from one another. So I think it's probably time for Ruiz to get her walking papers, unfortunately for her. Moving up on the card, Norma Dumont defeats Ketlin Vieira via split decision, 129-28 for Vieira, 229-28 for Dumont. I know some people are calling this like a robbery and whatnot. I agree to a point, but I honestly think the right person won. Granted, this is part of me thinking I picked Dumont, so I partially, of course, wanted to win a split decision. But hear me out. Round 1 was clearly Ketlin Vieira's. In that first round, they were having some striking exchanges. Dumont had a more traditional karate-type stance and was doing pretty well for leg kicks. But then when Vieira got the takedown in, she proved to be not only a stronger but technically superior grappler. Dumont couldn't get up, which was admittedly surprising for me, as I thought Dumont had improved her grappling pretty well over the course of her bantamweight run, especially on this win streak. But unfortunately, Vieira was just simply stronger. Had the rear naked choke and then transitioned to an arm triangle for the rest of round 1, but Dumont was able to relieve that pressure and survive the first round. Second round is the swing round in this one, and it was whoever won this round won the fight. I gave it to Dumont. Here's why. I thought Dumont clearly was winning on the feet for vast portions of the fight, landing good leg kicks, starting to open up with her hands, hitting her rear hand, whether it was southpaw or orthodox, to the body pretty well, touching up Vieira for most of the fight, and making Vieira go backwards for majority of the round. Then about a minute 30 in round 2, Vieira gets the takedown in, and I didn't think she did much with it. Honestly, she got the control time, sure, but I thought Dumont, started to get closed guard and wrapped her arms around Vieira so Vieira couldn't pick them up easily and then start landing with ground and pound, or really transitioning all that much. And I just, Vieira had clearly the control time, but I thought Dumont did more on the feet for longer and had the more significant moments of it. Like I said, the takedown was important in this fight, and Vieira's control time, sure. And, sometimes it's how the round ends, is how some people score it. Fair enough. But I don't think that Vieira won the round. I don't, because she mostly because she got top pressure and didn't do anything with it. Now, this is also mostly because Dumont was doing the right things, but I think it's finally shown that, in the new scoring criteria, if damage truly trumps all, then if you just lay on top of your opponent and can't do anything with it, I don't think it should be scored for you. And so I think Dumont won round 2. And then round 3 was clearly Dumont's. Everyone agrees on that part. Dumont was basically defending takedowns from the clinch against Vieira. And then once that happened, Vieira, you could clearly see, was kind of, what's going on for here, took her foot off the pedal, if so to speak, as she probably thought she was up 2. And Dumont was mostly just landing distance striking from the black line to the cage, as Vieira started just circling around the cage, never really advanced forward after her takedown from the clinch failed. And Dumont just started unloading with strikes, but nothing of too much significance, I'll say. But clearly, Dumont won that round. And, you know, it's something, sometimes people make this kind of mistake in MMA fights. It's like they think they're up 2 and kind of coast the 3rd round. Sometimes that's fine because if you clearly know you're up, but in fights like these where it can be pretty close, you got to go for a finish or you really got to stamp your claim. Because I think if Vieira did more, she would have won the round and won the fight. But overall, I thought rounds 1 went to Vieira, and then I thought rounds 2 and 3 went to Dumont. Again, that is how I scored it because of the new damage trumps all type of criteria. And, you know, you may disagree, fair enough, but I thought Norma Dumont won the fight. This puts her in an interesting spot, though, because I can tell you this right now. She should be the #1 contender. She's on a very long win streak, now 6-fight win streak. She just beat Kelvin Vieira, who's proven to be this gatekeeper towards the title, because Vieira only really loses these close fights to champions, right? Think of Vieira's last losses. Raquel Pennington, who became champion, Kayla Harrison, champion, and now Norma Dumont, who should fight for a title. There's 3 things, though, with this fight for me. 1, I think Dumont will absolutely get destroyed by Kayla Harrison. If she cannot defend the wrestling of Ketlin Vieira, then Harrison should have no problem with Dumont. Of course, if Harrison can make the weight healthy, and, you know, nothing's compromised, I think she'll beat Norma Dumont kind of easily. 2, we're kind of log-jammed at 135 pounds because we're basically waiting to see if the super fight between Kayla Harrison and Amanda Nunes will happen. And if that fight were to happen, it'll definitely happen in the White House, as Harrison is the only only champion on the UFC's roster that's from America. Well, besides Merab, who got his citizenship, so he's technically included too, but I guess American board champion would be the better word. So we're still waiting to see if we're going to get the Nunes-Harrison fight. So I think Dumont might have to fight one more time. In a perfect world, she could fight Juliana Pena, or she could fight Raquel Pennington, as they were originally scheduled to fight each other on Noche. So that could work out. Either way, honestly, good win for Dumont. And it's shown, you know, Vieira usually just loses close decisions. That's usually what happens. Moving up on the card. Dante Johnson defeats Cedriquez Dumas via guillotine choke. Really, it was kind of a ninja choke, but they call it a guillotine choke. Doesn't really matter. I would say Dante Johnson showed some levels. He definitely showed that he can, you know, he's not one round or bust. And if he's dealt with some adversity, he can fight back. As, you know, Dumont's on paper is still the best opponent he's fought, and clearly the best fighter he has a win against. Granted, that ain't meaning much, but still shows that Johnson can get a win at the UFC level. So in the first round, Dumas did exactly what he should have in this fight. He went for his wrestling immediately. Actually picked up Johnson and was pressed Johnson against the fence while having a cradle. And I thought Johnson did a good job of composing himself. He didn't rush to get up and waste energy, and started trying to fight the grips of Dumas. What confused me the most, I guess, was when Johnson was able to break the grips and get up, he started immediately wrestling with Dumas. Now, it ended up working for him, as he actually got like a suplex on Dumas. And when Dumas went for some like spinning attacks, Johnson timed it perfectly, got in close, and then took down Dumas again. But I don't know, if he's starting to get out wrestled by, you know, Dumas or any other fighter. Like, imagine if it's Zach Reese, right? Now Zach Reese is a better jiu-jitsu fighter than Dumas, but imagine if Johnson is able to get out from the bottom and then immediately clinches with Zach Reese again. I just feel like that type of decision making can definitely get you in trouble. It just didn't for Dumas, as Dumas doesn't have the danger factor of some of the other middleweights. But excuse me, Johnson overall won round 1, started doing much better with his wrestling, got better top control, and landing some good ground and pound. Second round was honestly really fun. Eventually, Johnson's able to hurt Dumas, and Dumas is on his force, and he starts doing these like somersault kicks. He literally just kind of rolls over and lands with the heel of his foot, and actually hits Johnson twice. I thought that was freaking hilarious. But eventually, Johnson, you know, gets another takedown in and gets good top control. And eventually, he starts kind of fishing for what looks to be an anaconda, but then he doesn't actually secure the arm. So then he starts It looks like a ninja choke, at least to me, as he gets the one forearm underneath Dumas's chin, the other one above it. Kind of stitches it up like this. But at the same time, he kind of goes for a more circular motion. So I didn't think it was a guillotine, but whatever. And eventually, you kind of see Dumas win it out of there. As soon as that choke tightened up, he tapped immediately. Like I said, I hate calling fighters quitters, but I didn't think Dumas wanted to be in there any longer as he started feeling the power of Johnson and dealing with the adversity. But either way, Johnson gets his first UFC win. Now all of his fights have ended via finish. And man, if you picked him to win by submission, you would have won a lot of money. I'm sure some of you possibly picked that Hail Mary thing. Oh man, this knockout artist to win by submission. Let's go for it. Congrats to you. You got a crystal ball. As for Johnson, he's still super raw. This is only his 7th fight. And honestly, I feel like I thought he got his UFC contract a little too early because he's basically fought the bottom of the barrel at middleweight. Besides, if Dennis Tululin, if he were actually still in the UFC. I mean, I don't think Dumas is going to be in the UFC any longer. He's now winless in his last 3. 1 no contest, granted, but the other 2 were bad bad losses. One to Alexiouchuk and the other now to Johnson. I think that's probably it for Dumas's career. As for Johnson, I think one of 2 things. You either A, give him a fellow debuting guy or, fellow prospect, or you give him the winner of Robert Valentine versus Jackson McVeigh. If you give him anyone else of a slightly higher caliber, I don't think he wins. Now, I think he could get a win over maybe Ozzy Diaz. I don't think he could beat Jordan Santos, as Santos is a dog. And even has more MMA experience than Johnson. That's the thing about a guy with literally just 7 pro fights, right? You have to think, do you build him up slowly or do you just feed him to the wolves and see if he survives? So I think a fellow debutant or Robert Valentine, Jackson McVeigh winner. Those are the only 2 I really think he should get. Moving up on the card. Timothy Kawamba defeats Chang Ho Lee via unanimous decision, 29-28. I picked Lee as a sort of underdog. Granted, by the time the fight started, he was the slight favorite at -115. And he looked it too. He got a takedown in early, and then from there, he got a body triangle. And eventually, we're basically at a stalemate as Kawamba gets up and Lee is still on his back. And all Kawamba can do, because he can't break the body triangle, is just defend rear naked chokes for 4+ minutes. That's basically what round 1 was. But, like I said, grappling dominance for Lee in round 1. Round 2, however, you could see Kawamba start picking it up. As he starts landing his strikes, his strikes start to land more effectively. His grappling defense starts to improve. Even has good grappling moments and positions over Lee in round 2, like getting on top. And being able to start to defend Lee's takedowns, pressing Lee against the fence instead. Overall, Kawamba started to pick up some steam as the fight went on. Round 3, it was 1-1 apiece, and Lee started good as he was pressuring early again, landed some good shots. Then Kawamba gets into the fence, and it looks like Kawamba was about to lose this fight via mistake as he goes for a head kick and he slips. And Lee takes advantage of it and immediately jumps Kawamba. But Kawamba is able to survive and even is able to kind of tripod and make Lee slip off of him. And then from there, Kawamba gets top pressure. He gets his own body triangle and back take. And from there, Kawamba wins a clear 29-28 decision. I thought Lee could do it. And like I said, he showed it in round 1, but Kawamba is pretty good under pressure, it seems, or much better than I thought he would in this fight. And he's got a good gas tank for 35. Was he stronger at 35? I don't know. I thought him and Lee kind of were of the same level of strength. It's just Kawamba was better on the feet technically and made some good mid-fight adjustments. So I can't really say if Kawamba truly is stronger at bantamweight. But what I can say is that he's definitely revitalized his UFC career, more or less. Got a great win over Roberto Romero. Now beat Lee, who, was a good South Korean prospect. Where Kawamba goes from here, that's a tough question. Because, bantamweight is so stacked full of killers. Not only, like, if you're a prospect in the bantamweight division, don't expect to be a prospect for long unless you know you are the one. But for Kawamba, I could think a Cameron Smotherman fight would be a good one for him. You know, both good strikers. They're kind of well-rounded, but Smotherman's more of a boxer, while I think Kawamba's better at kickboxing. So it's kind of interesting to see how this all plays out, but I think Kawamba versus Smotherman would make the most sense. As for Lee, he could fight maybe Jiu-Jitsu, you know, Suk Young Yu, or sorry, Yu Jang Yu. Can't speak today, my apologies. So, though, I think Jiu-Jitsu and Lee be kind of an interesting fight. Or you could fight Long Zhao. Oh, no, he fought Long Zhao. My apologies. Oh, man. It's so tough because Bantamweight's so full of killers. It's like, who really do you give Lee? Besides, you know, someone coming off a loss, but even then. And stacked Bantamweight division. So, though, I think the obvious fight for Kawamba probably is Cameron Smotherman. Or maybe Saeed City if when Saeed comes out of, you know, hiatus due to injury. I guess hiatus is a strong word, though. Moving up on the card, our featured prelim. Billy Alicon defeats Kevin Christian via rear naked choke of round number 1. So I thought Kevin Christian was doing pretty good up until he wasn't. His leg kicks were super effective. And so the way the fight played out is it was all in one round. Alicana and Christian were both orthodox, and you could see Alicana and Christian start trading leg kicks. And then Alicana starts going into southpaw, and they still kind of train leg kicks, more or less throwing distance striking at each other. And then you could see on Alicana's right leg, there was some massive swelling on it from Christian's leg kicks. It looks like a welt was growing on him, or like it looked like an alien was starting to grow on him and on Alicana's leg. And it looked like Kevin Christian might be able to win if he just keeps this distance striking. But then eventually, Alicana throws a big overhand right that drops Christian and immediately pounces on Christian and starts going for the ground and pound. Eventually, Christian gives up his back, and Alicana goes for the rear naked choke. Now, it was a little hard for me to see at first glance, but then you see it in the replay. Christian taps frantically as he knows he's done. The rear naked choke is in. But Chris Tione, who was the ref, was at the wrong angle to see the tap. And so by the time he calls off the fight, Christian is choked unconscious. Now, clearly you can talk about Chris Tione, like, how could you miss that? You know, obviously make sure you can see both angles. Fair enough. And you're not wrong on that criticism. That is a fair one. That at the same time, you know, is what it is. Granted, of course, it's absolutely dangerous, and you don't want a fighter to get choked unconscious more than, you know, what they are, and the ref should stop it immediately. But, you know, like I said, it is unfortunate. You know, if he dies, he dies, I guess. But good win for Billy Alicana. Truly, this is a great win. And, you know, showing he truly does have some potential. His only loss is to Bogdan Gustav, who's really good at this point. I mean, Gustav's literally fighting Jan Blachowicz in 2 months. So, really does show how good Gustav is. Now on a 2-fight win streak, beat Ibo Aslan, and now beat Kevin Christian. Where do they go from here? I think it's kind of obvious, more or less. I think Billy Alicana versus Zion Kutelaba. Kutelaba is a pretty good, you know, fighter to gauge exactly how skilled an opponent truly is. You know, he fraud checked Ibo Aslan, and maybe he could fraud check Alicana, or maybe Alican's much better than some people might think he is. After Kevin Christian, hard to say. I'd say give him Julius Walker. You know, they're both pretty raw. Light heavyweights, and you know, I think they're roughly the same skill level. It'll be kind of interesting too, because Julius Walker will definitely go for more grappling than Alicana did, and Kevin Christian was pretty good off his back, so I think that probably makes the most sense for him. Moving up, our main card opener. Alan Nascimento defeated Cody Durden via anaconda choke at round 2. Oh boy, this fight started to scare me. I gotta tell you, I was confident in Nascimento. You know, this fight was short notice for Durden. Durden was seemingly on the decline, and Alan Nascimento is a really good fighter. And but man, it seems when Cody Durden is on short notice, he does very well. And maybe it's just due to the fact is like he has no pressure on him. Well, of course he has pressure in this fight. He would be on a 3-fight skid, and 2 of those would be finishes. Well, in this case, 2 of them are finishes. But when you're short notice against a guy who's supposed to fight a top 15 fighter, there's less pressure on you to succeed as much as there is him. You know, especially short notice as Durden, you're supposed to lose more or less. But I thought Cody Durden did very well with his aggression and boxing early on. It's just Alan Nascimento does not move that head of his, not whatsoever. He's got sometimes a good guard, but most of his defense is this. Not much. He doesn't really like actually have a mobile guard. He doesn't constantly block shots, and he will literally just move backwards in a straight line. And that is not good. I guarantee you a much better striker will knock him out for it. Like I said, there's only so much you can move backwards before you're by the fence and you have nowhere to go unless you can move right to left. And if he fights a good cage cutter and a good striker, I think Nascimento might get knocked out for sure. Now, that being said, Nascimento's striking in this were pretty good. His intercepting knees to the body were not bad. His best weapons were probably his calf kicks as he was starting to chew up Durden's leg. And even his counter hooks were, I thought, pretty effective. But I thought Durden clearly won the first round as he landed the much better shots. Started to mark up the face of Nascimento. You can see Nascimento's, his left side was starting to get pretty red. My kitty wants to say hi too. And then round 2, I thought it was Durden's round as well. His pressure was pretty good, but as I had thought, he sometimes over pressures his opponent and gets caught. In this case, Nascimento kind of clips him with a right hand, drops Durden, and then Durden, in a bad moment, in a bad decision in the moment, he goes for a takedown, and Nascimento locks up sort of a guillotine and transitions to an anaconda. And Durden, does his best to try and fight out of it, like using his legs to turn around with the fence to try and elevate some of the pressure and or escape the lock. But Nascimento, shoot to box, Diego Lima guy, too good of his jiu-jitsu is too good. And kind of as I thought, Nascimento won via submission. Like I said, this fight kind of told me some things about Nascimento. He's still got really good jiu-jitsu. He does have some good counter-striking to him. His striking defense is something greatly to be desired for me. But he's got a pretty good chin. As for who they give him, you're supposed to fight Rafael Esteban. I say rebook that fight. I'm still very interested in, and Nascimento for sure should still get a shot at the top 15. I'd still be interested because I think Nascimento can give Esteban some trouble, especially as the grappling goes, because like I said, both of them are more positional, dominant grapplers, but they do have some submissions on them. Excuse me. So overall, though, I do think the rebooking makes the most sense. As for Cody Durden, this is rough for him. He's now 1-3 in his last 5. Or sorry, 1-3 in his last 4. His last 2 losses are now by finish, and the last one, and his other loss was a bad beating by Joshua Van for 3 rounds. Who they give Durden? That's a good question. I don't want him to cut him. They did. He did the UFC a favor stepping in on short notice like this, but I don't know, man. That's a good question because flyweight's so dangerous. They might feed him Loner Kavanaugh for all I know. But whatever they give him, I hope the best for Durden. He does still put on really exciting fights, but I think they might feed him Loner Kavanaugh. Moving up on the card, Charles Radke defeats Daniel Frunza via 3rd round submission. Rear naked choke. Honestly, I thought this was Charles Radke's best performance besides maybe his win over Gabriel Ubina. But I think in terms of like just a complete performance and taking advantage of his opponent's deficiencies, this is definitely Charles Radke's best performance. Round 1, they kind of exchanged some striking for the most part. Then Radke shoots in for a double and gets it. And from there, he's able to control the entirety of the fight once it hits the ground. His wrestling positions were better than Frunza's. His grappling was easily better than Frunza's. And Frunza's bottom game was Not good at all. He did not have an ability to get up. He didn't really have an ability to like get butterfly hooks in or get underhooks or create space or shrimp or anything like that. And Radke eventually got the back. I'll give credit to Frunze. He was tough and tried his best to survive the rear naked choke attempts in the first round, which he did. And I thought, it showed he's got guts. And, like he showed in his fight with Reese McKee, Frunze's got heart, that's for sure. But so clearly round 1 went to Radke. Round 2 did not play out much differently. They were kind of exchanging some strikings for the most part. Radke got another takedown in. Actually, this time really unloaded with elbows and hammer fist and started bloodied up the face of Frunze. Then in round 3, once again, was patient, got the takedown in, eventually got the back, secured the back, and then Radke finished it with a rear naked choke. Honestly, I think this is the best Radke's ever looked in the UFC. If we're talking about his patience, his ability to take advantage of his opponent's deficiencies and use his other tools that you don't really see that much, I thought this was a great performance by Radke. Now, I know this doesn't get him to the top 15, and Radke's kind of shown that top 15 level fighters will beat him, as shown with Prates and Malat. But outside of the top 15, he puts up a competitive fight. He beat a lot of guys. It's maybe crazy, but I think Radke versus the winner of Muslim Salikov and Uros Medic might be the fight to make. Or Poliani Soriano also makes a lot of sense for me. And I think Radke's kind of live to win that fight. Both have good power, but I think Radke might be a better wrestler. That'd be an interesting fight, actually. I think the Soriano fight makes the most sense. As for Daniel Frunze, it's shown he has some of the worst wrestling in his division. So you put him against a wrestler, I think he's going to lose. Put him against a striker, I don't know if he can win either. He lost to Reese McKee. I was going to say feed him Alex Sola, but then I got to remember Sola's going to move down to lightweight again. So not him. Not sure who you give Daniel Frunze. Probably just another bottom of the barrel type guy. Ooh, you could give him Phil Rowe. I think Phil Rowe was live to win that fight. Or they feed him Jake Matthews, but boy, Jake Matthews would do terrible things to him. But I think it'd be a way to give Matthews a free win. Or if Francisco Prado is still in the UFC, maybe give him Frunze. Or last one that I'm kind of spitballing here, Austin Vanderford, just so Vanderford can get a win in the UFC, get back on the win column, because I think he'll beat Frunze kind of easily. So, though, great win by Radke. Now, here's where some interesting stuff happens. Yadier Del Valle defeats Isaac Dalgarian in the first round via rear naked choke. So, before I get to my thoughts and some of the controversy surrounding this fight, let me talk about what happened. So, the moment the bell rung, you notice Dalgarian is pretty patient and overly cautious. Usually Dalgarian is much more on the front foot and kind of shooting for that takedown immediately, but not really in this fight. When he does get a takedown in, he doesn't really explode with it. He gets to go for the single, and credit to Del Valle. He's doing a great job of putting his hand on and pressing the back of Dalgarian's head and not letting Dalgarian kind of do what he wants with his head to the hip of Del Valle and just putting a lot of pressure so Dalgarian cannot really press upwards. Eventually, Yadier is able to sprawl and take the back of Dalgarian. From there, he is starting to fish the rear naked choke of Dalgarian constantly in this fight. And Dalgarian is doing some very odd things. He's more so punching the back behind him and hitting Del Valle, but he's not really fighting the hands a lot, which is weird because, for a guy who's a two-division All-American standout and showing really good grappling, Dalgarian is making some really bad decisions. Like I said, punching the back of the head and still fighting the hands. Now, he sometimes fights the hands and looks like he might survive round one as Del Valle is constantly changing the grips, mostly going palm to palm and or the classic setup, hook the choking hand to this hand. Or I guess the lever would be the word. But eventually he's able to get the right adjustment for his grip and eventually get the squeeze in, and Dalgarian taps. And it seems impressive. Del Valle, was a really good striker. He showed really good grappling in this fight. I mean, he showed it against Connor Matthews for sure, but Dalgarian is a much, much better grappler and striker, or sorry, wrestling/grappler than Matthews, but it was weird. And then, as soon as after that, I started seeing some things on like Instagram, YouTube, post-fight sections, and Twitter, stuff like that. And it was crazy as you look at this, right? The odds for this fight, Friday, Dalgarian was still a 2-1 favorite over Del Valle. But then the odds shift drastically to a full 100, where Delgado is roughly about minus 150, minus 156, while Del Valle is much closer, like plus 130. Like, huh. And then you see the line from Del Valle win via first round was once minus 800 to now minus 500. And that's even more suspicious. And then for how Dalgarian was fighting, there might be some legal ramifications. Who knows? This might be a betting scandal, ladies and gentlemen, because you also saw it. It was you can look it up yourself. The sports books are going to refund everyone who betted on Dalgarian, whether it was straight up or parlay, and all bets on Yadier are going to be like null and void. And it looks like they might do a full-on investigation of this fight. Kind of crazy when you think about it. Well, this is the first time I've ever seen this live, right? By the time I really got into the UFC, the whole scandal with James Krause was kind of over with, and he was no longer in the UFC. He was no longer coaching MMA. He was already being dealt with this punishment. So I'd never seen one of these scandals happen in real time like I have now. And then you realize Dalgarian actually trained with James Krause, so pretty suspicious. So I think one of two things. Either A, I think one's a little more plausible than the other. One, Dalgarian was actually injured and it got leaked. And so, someone leaked it, and when people found out, they just started putting money on Del Valle. And it's possible because you saw how tentative Dalgarian was and how many mistakes he was making. Plus, if there's one knack on wrestlers who transition to MMA, is that they're not good off their back. That's like the one thing about wrestling. When you move from wrestling to MMA, usually if you pin someone, you win, and you're just trying to either defend the takedown or get the takedown and get top position. Once they're on their back, they're not as good as, say, a jiu-jitsu practitioner. Now, granted, you see wrestlers who are able to transition pretty well and like scramble like crazy to get up. But top control pressure wrestlers/grapplers like Dalgarian are not as good off their back as they are being on top. So it could be Dalgarian was actually injured, and like I said, that got leaked. Or, threw the fight away, told people to bet on, Del Valle to win, stuff like that. That also might happen. And, there was actually an interview Dalgarian has with MMA Junkie that he thinks fighters should get a percentage of sports bets, which, that's not how that works. And now, if it's true, my second opinion, that's true, man. You can't beat Vegas. Vegas undefeated. You can't play Vegas like that. And Vegas will find a way, and Vegas will make you pay. So let's say there's no controversy, right? Let's say this is all speculation. Del Valle looked really good in this fight. And, maybe he might suffer some legal ramifications. Maybe he was in on it. I don't know. Honestly, it's hard to matchmake after that type of thing, because I want to see how fully the investigation goes before I make a decision. Because if both are involved, they both might get cut. If it's just Dalgarian, he might get cut. So really, I would prefer to see how this plays out. Still very interesting. Moving up, our featured fight. Jeremiah Wells defeats Demba Gorimbo via unanimous decision, 29-28. I thought Gorimbo in the first round did pretty well with his control-based grappling, and actually got some pretty good takedowns over Wells in all of the first round. Wells had some moments in the first round. He was able to get up at moments, but I thought overall Gorimbo's chain wrestling and position transitions were pretty good. Then in rounds 2 and onward, you saw Gorimbo make a lot of mistakes. Clearly, Gorimbo is talented, right? He's clearly talented, but he started to kind of let Wells kind of dictate the fight. Wells started to pressure. He started landing with some good strikes. And Wells was actually able to reverse position. Now, granted, he comes from Henzo Gracie Jiu-Jitsu up in Philly. They are good grapplers. There's just like Sean Brady's camp. So you could see Wells do pretty well and transition to mount and get an arm triangle in. Now, he wasn't able to complete it, but overall, I thought Wells won the first round, and then the third round was clearly Wells' fight. Garimbo did get a takedown and got some control time for about a minute or two into round 3, but then Wells was able to reverse position and then control the fight from there on after. So at most, Wells won rounds 2 and 3. Man, Wells and round sounds such a tongue twister, but still, Wells clearly won the fight. Honestly, this fight was kind of boring. I can remember the aspects of it. Like I said, Garimbo won the first round, and then Wells was able to reverse position on some of the grappling exchanges and win. But there wasn't too much on the feet. Garimbo had his shots. Wells has his shot. Nothing of too significance on the feet. But I thought Wells did a good job. At 39, he showed, he still can be competitive with a guy who was younger than him and roughly more talented. But Garimbo just simply made too many mistakes in it, and he paid for it in this fight. So now thinking, where do they go from here, right? For Wells, maybe a fight with, Chris Curtis. I think that could be fun. Chris Curtis is a much better boxer than Wells, can take down defense, but Wells does have that power. I think that'd be an interesting fight. And Wells shown to have good grappling overall. As for Thimba Garimbo, besides The Rock, I assume wanting the keys to that house back, I think Garimbo, they're not going to cut him. He was on a 4-fight win streak before this. They could give him Austin Vanderford instead. That'd be an interesting fight. Vanderford's a veteran, good wrestling. Garimbo has good grappling. That's a possibility. I would say Ramiz Brahimaz if they didn't already fight, and Garimbo didn't already beat him, but I think Brahimaz could win win the rematch. Oh, I got it. Billy Ray Goff. I think Billy Ray Goff would be probably a good fight for Garimbo. Both guys coming off a bad loss and wanting to get back in the win column. Yeah, both guys on 2 fight skids. I think that fight makes sense. Move on the card. Waldo Cortez Acosta knocks out Ante Dalia in the first round. This fight was crazy, mostly for what had happened. So it was kind of a Waldo fight for the first half of the round. Waldo landing some jabs, Dalia pressuring forward. Eventually, Dalia goes in for a takedown, and Waldo is kind of pressed against the fence, and they're kind of jockeying for position in the clinch, underhooks and overhooks. And Waldo, showing he's improved his takedown defense, able to defend the takedown of Dalia. And then it looks like, now at first glance, it looks like Dalia lands like a good left hook on Waldo and hurts Waldo, but then you see Waldo grip his eye, and the Dalia starts unloading a barrage of punches and seemingly TKOs the durable Waldo Cortez Acosta. I'm like, oh my God, what a win for Ante Dalia, another first round finish. But then Mark Smith, who was the referee in this fight, wanted to see the replay, and you could see it. It was either the ring finger or the pinky finger of Dalia as he's throwing a punch or closing his fist to throw the punch. The eye gouges Cortez Acosta and nails him right in his left eye. There's something to be said about karma. When Dalia, went on interview on Wednesday, going, of all my fights, which how many did Dalia have? Of my 32 fights, I've never poked anybody in the eye. Well, he just poked someone in the eye in this fight. So go figure that happens after you say it. I don't know. He jinxed himself for that one. But it was so weird how they handled this, right? So Mark Smith gives Cortez Acosta a chance to rest. Now, granted, if he had seen that eye poke and instead let Cortez Acosta recover, he would not have been given a stool to sit on and recover as he did. While Dalia, has this clear adrenaline dump as he thought he won. Now, this is a bit different than, say, the Nelson Fervola fiasco where it was clearly the ref stopped it and then decided, oh no, I didn't. This is more of a case of a foul leading towards the finish, and it would be very unfortunate for Waldo if the fight ended the way it did, because he would have been screwed of getting a chance to win. So the referees give him some time, but there's clearly no timer going like counting to 5 minutes, giving him his time. And they give him an ultimatum: either A, you can't continue and this is no contest, or 2, you continue fighting, but he's going to have a compromised eye. Eventually, Waldo is eventually able to recover just enough, and the fight resumes. And so D'Elia obviously is going to rush Waldo and try and get him out of there, as he's clearly now has compromised vision. Waldo is then able to throw a jab and then throw his baseball pitch of a right hand and nails D'Elia right on the button and drops him, and then finishes it off with ground and pound. It's like, holy shit. I had wondered, because Cortez Acosta, he has some power to him, but his only finishes in the UFC were against 2 former light heavyweights. Even the kitty is surprised. But, I mean, hey, that shot was perfect. He landed right on the button. You cannot get better than that. And so, now we basically saw one fighter win by TKO, and then the other fighter gets it back and hit this fight via TKO all in one round. Again, I feel like partially it was I felt bad for D'Elia. Like I said, the adrenaline jump was clearly there. Cortez Acosta should not have been given a stool to stand. I do stand on that, because, like I said, if the foul was called, now granted, like I said, it was mid fist close, so it was a little harder to see than like going like this. But if it was called properly, then it would have been a standard 5-minute timer, and Waldo basically got a second chance in this fight. Then immediately after the fight, he did clinch his left eye, and he said he had about 20% vision in that one. So clearly, eye poke still hurt him, but he was pretty good at fighting through that pain, helping when he needed to. This puts Cortez Acosta in a very interesting spot, because he's number 6 in the weight class, but he's clearly showing he's one of the top heavyweights right now. He beat Spivak on short notice, which was impressive. He didn't get run over by Pavlovich like some of his other opponents. And now knocks out Ante D'Elia, who is a well-traveled MMA veteran and, good close training partner with Tom Aspinall. It's both Cortez Acosta in an interesting spot. Now, I personally would probably give him Curtis Blades, as, Blades is coming off that win over Rizian Kuniev. Arguably could have lost that fight, and Blades has not fought since June. Now, great, I know he tore both his ACLs, so he has taken a lot of time to recover. Fair enough. But I think that's probably the next good test for Waldo. He's now fighting arguably the best wrestler in the division, or at least on paper, the best wrestler. So that could be, I think that's the smart next step for Waldo. Really show how good his takedown defense has gotten. Or give him Volkov, but I personally think Volkov can just wait until Aspinall gone too. So, some things. As for Ante D'Elia, I don't think that sets him back too far. Heavyweight is a wide open division. You can literally lose a fight and then win your next 2 or 3 and be next in line for a title shot in this division. So for D'Elia, I think the winner of Spivak versus Gaziv is probably what they should do next, or give him Mick Parkin. That makes the most sense, I think, in my opinion. Still, though, good win for Cortez Acosta. I was nervous about this fight, to be honest with you, like I said. And I did not know who I would really pick to win. And it was a pick 'em for a long portion. And I thought it rightfully was so. But at the end of the day, Cortez Acosta got it done. Good on him. Moving up, our main event of the evening. If you like the video, like and subscribe, and leave a comment of what you think of this card overall and what was your favorite performance. Steve Garcia ran through David Onama like he was an unranked fighter on short notice. Holy shit. I had thought, this fight would last a little longer than a round. I knew this wasn't going to a decision. But man, to think Garcia would dominate David Onama the way he did, man, Garcia is really good. So, Garcia is mostly in southpaw, and Onama would switch stances, but primarily fight in orthodox. You can see they're kind of gauging distance to both of them. But it was Garcia who was initiating the offense, either sticking his jab, landing the left hand, occasionally attack to the body with hooks or kicks. And Onama kind of just was playing defense from the get-go. He never really got much offense going. The most offense he did get was when Garcia started to rush in and Onama kind of clipped him with a counter. And you could see it blade up the left eyebrow of Garcia. But Garcia was not, or sorry, Onama didn't really get much offense going. And the moment Garcia landed that shot, it was specifically a left cross / overhand that rocked David Onama. Garcia went on him like white on rice. Started chaining together combinations, landing to the body. He kind of did the same thing he did on Shaye Norbeke, where he goes for like a body kick to the liver and then lands the hook at the exact same spot. You can see that hurt Onama. And then Garcia started landing left uppercuts, right hooks, left straights, right? It's just putting combinations together and eventually wilts David Onama and finishes off with ground and pound in the first round. Garcia is one of my favorites. He really is. Garcia is one of my favorite ranked contenders in the featherweight division. And he's got some really good wins, guys. He's got some great wins. Like Maquezio Acosta has aged very well. Chepe Mariscal has aged fucking beautifully. Chase Hooper, more or less that win has somewhat aged pretty well. Chase Hooper's a pretty good fighter, all things considered. And now he beat David Onama, who, you know, is a very skilled fighter and shown a level to compete with the top 15. But man, Garcia made him look like he didn't even belong with him. I think this is fucking great for Garcia. He's now won 7 in a row, 6 knockouts. The only guy he did not finish was Calvin Kattar, who is so durable. You know, Calvin Kattar's never been finished in his career. And he showed it surviving against Steve Garcia for 3 rounds. Goddamn. Where this puts Steve Garcia in this very interesting spot, because he's clearly deserves a fight with like the top 10 of the featherweight division. But man, featherweight is so stacked. Who do you give him? You could give him John Silva, because that'd be an amazing fight. Just violence. Pure, unadulterated violence. You could give him Arnold Allen. You know, Arnold Allen hasn't fought since last July, and he needs a fight. They could definitely book that fight. Say, in a perfect world, right? We get Aspinall versus Gane, like, say, I don't know, in England, you know, in London. We could do Arnold Allen versus Steve Garcia. That would be an awesome one. Or just make that Fight Night main event. Or 3, Yair Rodriguez, but I personally want Yair to fight Lopez. Now, granted, I've heard that it might be Lerone Murphy and Diego Lopez, so maybe we'll get Garcia versus Yair instead. But I personally would love to see the Arnold Allen fight, because Arnold Allen's a very good fighter, good tactician, kind of like Onama, but I think he has a more well-rounded game, definitely more experience. And it'd be a great test for Onama. Plus, I want to see fucking Arnold Allen fight again. He hasn't fought since last July. I don't know why it's been the way that is, but I don't know. I would like to see Arnold Allen fight again sometime next year. Thank you. As for David Onama, this does set him back quite a bit. Now, I don't think he's booted out of the rankings. He might end up dropping down to 14, 15, somewhere along those lines. He might have to defend his ranking. And if he were, I'd say the winner of Maquezio Acosta and Morgan Charrier would be a good next fight for Onama. Actually, they think you have 2 options, right? The winner of Charrier versus Costa, like I said, or the winner of Chepe Mariscal and Pat Sabatini. Either one of those 2, whoever wins and whoever wins more impressively should fight David Onama. But overall, that has been my post-fight show for UFC Fight Night 263. As I said before, if you liked the video, leave a comment. Like and subscribe. And let me know in the comment sections what you thought. What did you think of Steven Garcia's performance? What did you think of the controversy involving Cortez Acosta and D'Elia? What do you think of the gambling controversy between Yair Del Valle and Bulgarian? And overall, what was your favorite performance on the card? Well, that being said, I've been Bo from Brutal Commentary. I thank you all for listening. Take care.